Good evening, friends. This is Barb Pask. I'm going to start a commission tonight. I'll let you watch. This is an 8x10 stretch canvas, and I'll show you the dog. Isn't he sweet? I love the pose. This is commissioned by a gal named Monica out of California, and she rescued this dog. I don't know if you got a good look at it or not, but when she got him, he was missing an eye and I believe blind in the other eye. So she's a wonderful person. I think she's rescued several animals. Not sure how you pronounce his name. P-E-L-E, Peely, maybe. But Monica, feel free in the comments section to add anything you might like to tell us about him. I believe he's gone now. So I told her we would do it online because she has an interest herself in learning to paint dogs, and she wanted to watch the process. So hopefully it goes well. So my plan is to, we'll just see how far we get tonight. Maybe at least do part 1 and 2 on here, and you know, I won't bore you with 3 and 4 if it goes on, but we'll get going here. One tip I wanted to show you is I buy these stretch canvases from Dick Blick, and I usually buy quite a few of them at one time. Nice quality canvases. Sometimes when you open them occasionally, I'll sometimes go through a few before I find one that sometimes they're loose. This one, for example, had a lot of loose places in it. So this is a little tip for you. What I did was I took a sponge brush and a lot of water, and I wet the whole back of this. And when I let it dry, it tightened it up nice, see? So a little tip for you there. Instead of pulling it off, you know, and restapling it, which some people would do. Some people do that anyway. Sometimes they regesser them. I mean, we all work differently. All right, so we're going to work like we always do. We're going to start with our darkest darks, work to our lightest lights, and I work with a limited palette in water mixable oils. I have a warm and cool of blue, yellow, and red, and white. I also have transparent red oxide and Indian yellow on here. And I did, which I don't always do, but I did throw some black here in the corner, sometimes for animals. I never use it by itself, but sometimes I'll mix some black in there. And I'm going to do that. I'm starting off with ultramarine blue, transparent red oxide, and I threw a little black in there. So that's what we're going to start with. And my brushes are Rosemary and Company. I did want to mention that you probably can tell by looking at the photo, it is a professionally shot, and I did get permission to use the photo. I've talked about that before, but you got to be careful about copyright infringement. Some people don't realize that, but photographs like paintings are copyrighted, and you know, I do have a friend that actually did get in trouble for that one time, so it can happen. You never know where your painting might end up, so just be careful. If you're not using your own references, just make sure you get permission. So again, we're going to start off, and we're going to look at him close here, and we're going to go after the darkest darks we see. And I see his ears, you know, are a little difficult to see at the top, but I've looked at other photos to try to help me figure that out. And we probably will not do a dark background like that. She wasn't sure she loved it, and we'll decide when we get there. That's what I usually do. And you know, you can always do it over if it doesn't work. So we'll just look at this, and we're going to place in those darkest darks where we see them. Gotten cold here in Ohio. We just jump all around. We have one pretty day, and then it's cold. And I think come Saturday it's supposed to get a little better, and then Easter Sunday looks to be a nice day. I'm so grateful. then we're back into the 70s next week. So. And I always say that I work like a puzzle. I'm just looking, you know, what's the shape here? And like I say, he doesn't really have an eye here. We're going to just paint what we see though. Even though this is all black up in here, it is not as dark as this color. So I'm only putting in the darkest shapes and colors that I see. And I'm going to block in the whole nose, even though we have to explain it better later on. Hope you can see okay. You're off obviously at an angle. I'll bring you in at the end, or maybe here and there, and show it to you. Makes a big difference to be directly behind it. And a dark background makes it tricky to decipher everything we're seeing, but we'll figure it out. And this band across here is very dark. I've said it before, but animals that are multicolored like this are easier than, as you can imagine, than a solid black animal or a solid white animal. And I can push this and get it to be a bit lighter. You know, put a little more pressure on it. And I'm not really exactly putting in toenails at this point. I just see some dark blotches there, so I'm putting them in. And don't worry a lot about going too dark in the beginning. You know, you can always come back from that. I mean, everything can be fixed, especially if you're working in oils or acrylics. You go over top of it. So don't give up. Don't give up. All right, let's push this. Let's take this same pile and go a little bit lighter with it now. And make sure I've got all these darks in here I want. Pretty big brush I'm using. And I usually just mask the eye in for now. You know, we can come in and explain it later. All right. I put a little more blue in there and a little white. I'm pulling it lighter because up here on top of his head, it's not quite so dark. I'm going to pull on the computer. It's nice to have an image on the computer versus a photo to hold in your hand, because I can, like right now, I can pull this head up to be the size of approximately my image here on the painting, and that does help. Above his nose here is lighter and more gray. And don't panic and get ahead of yourself and start adjusting and adjusting. I mean, get everything covered, you know, so you can, like, until you get all the colors in everywhere, it's hard to really know if you have it right. It's a pretty dog, pretty coloring. Sorry if you can hear the ball game in the back. My husband's today, we live in Cincinnati area, and today is the opening day of the Reds. So that's what he's watching. And it's been snowing today, and typical Cincinnati weather. Cold. But I guarantee you, because you know, sports fans, there's some crazy people down there without their shirts on, because you see that every year, painted up and screaming, right? All right, let's mix up some of this pretty warm color I see in the face. I'm going to put some of my transparent red oxide out here, and we'll add some yellow to that. I'm going to mix up a little puddle over here, just orange, transparent red, cad red light and yellow. Just a nice pure orange over here off to the side, so we can add that as we need to. And again, don't be afraid when you do this, just do it. I mean, get it in there, you can adjust it. You know, get him covered, and you know, we will be doing a lot of that, you know. I got to get him right, so that looks a little dark. So let's put a little more white in there. And again, look at the size of this brush. We'll have to be, you know, we'll go smaller when we are trying to get more precise. Kind of looking for areas where it looks a little more orange, so that's where I'm laying it in now. cool it off a little bit. Put a little blue in there to kind of kill the intensity of this orange. It's a little dark. Yeah, you just keep adjusting it, and the more you shift it around, you know, lighter, darker, warmer, cooler, I think the more interesting it can be anyway, so. And if you're an oil painter, you know these colors intermix on the canvas, which can be very nice if you use them right. Need a cameraman, and then we could go back and forth from my palette to the easel, huh? Maybe one day when I'm wealthy, right? Yeah. Probably not going to happen. Just focusing on the head and the ears for now. Guess the ears are part of the head, aren't they? Yeah. And sometimes it takes till the second time, like, you know, this is white here, and I'll come back with a brighter white to clean it up. You know, right now it's getting a little muddy because it's intermixing with all this other stuff, but don't worry about it. All right, I'm looking at some of these shapes. So let's move on. We'll get the body, work on blocking in the body, and then we'll come back and start looking at everything again. of an orange color over there. So sometimes if you're doing like this is lighter here, but I'm going to go ahead and put a bit of a darker color underneath. And you can do that with, say you have a white dog. Sometimes you may want to base that dog in a bit of a darker color. Not dark, but something darker. So when you start adding the lighter color on top, you'll be able to see your strokes. Because this area on him, there's a lot of white, but I'm just putting like a gray wash on for now, so the white will show up. You know, and that may not happen today. He's a little challenging with this dark background. I'll have to look at that real close when we go to paint him in the background. Like I think this comes into here a little more. Yeah, he doesn't stand up in the background. I think we'll go down on the body and put in the darker parts that I see first. Not a lot. I think there's a real dark area right here, and I think we're seeing underneath him right there, I think. And you can see his little back foot sticking out there. Which I assume she wants. Okay, it looks like to me this needs to come up. I say, oh, and by the way, I never really mentioned that I sketched him on in pencil. That's usually what I do. It works pretty well. I mean, better than charcoal. Charcoal you tend to pick up when you go to paint. Everybody's got their way of doing things. Cute position, isn't it? Did he lay this way, Monica, on his own a lot? See, it's going to be beautiful. These colors are just gorgeous. The feet look lighter as they come toward us. Looks to be like on a footstool, and then so we'll have to, it would be best in my opinion, kind of make it look like, you know, this is coming over the edge and down like it is in the photo. We needed to figure that out. You know, we want it to make sense. Just ordered a great big banner for, I have a show, it's actually in October, which sounds like a long way, but when you do shows you have to, I already paid and sent in an application, but anyway, it's one where I mostly try to, I'm mostly there for pet commissions, and so I ordered a great big banner, 6 foot long, with different photos of pets that I've painted. Came out real nice. Oh, from Vista Print. If you've never used Vista, I use Vista for my business cards and posters and Christmas cards. V-I-S-T-A, Vista. But the banner came out real nice, and you'll be able to see it from across the room. So now we're going to, you know, we'll suggest his little toes, of course, and then he's got, you know, we want to look for everything that helps us explain him, the little colorations across there before we're done, you know. And this little line is actually lighter underneath his. All right, we got the doggy covered. Now let's go back up to the head. Like I said, I'm going to blow it up to about the same size. So now we can kind of revisit everything. I'm just starting to play around with really subtle adjustments, colors that I see. He's lighter right here. I see warmer in here. like next to his eye. He's got a very dark shape here, and so I'm looking for the shape of it again, like a puzzle piece, you know. Okay, I think we'll switch to a brush that's a little smaller. Yeah. Like start getting in some of these. That's a little lighter there. That's a little lighter there. All right, now I'm looking at his eye on my right, and we'll block in the whole shape dark for now that I see. Some people, they're just so terrible, aren't they? The way anybody would mistreat an animal. You wonder why they ever trust humans again sometime. I wish I could see the shape of his ears a little better. We might. Yeah, he didn't have an eye here, and he was blind in this eye. I think I have that right. So it just kind of looks almost like a blue cataract. There is a highlight in the eye, however, though. And actually, before we do the highlight, let's see if we can get this a little bluer looking. A little catch light. On this side, I really matter painting what you see, right? lighter on top, which that's typical because it's catching light. And usually you have a couple little places catching light just below the nostrils. And usually the nostrils are darker. Which we started off and painted this all pretty dark, so been working on about 40 minutes, so not bad. Like I said, I've got quite a few photos of him, but there I can see his little ears a little better in that one. They're fairly pointy. Just something to consider when, if you're painting, if you want your subject to stand out more, then you got to think about the value of your background. So I'm using more than one photo, looking back and forth. Looking down, looking to see how far down the nose comes. Because this space from here to here is probably only about that big, so. Going back to the bigger brush. If when you're doing these you feel like you're starting to get too caught up in small areas, go back to a big brush. I'm looking at negative space from here to here. See, this is too wide right here. And then from here, like I said, some of this will be when we paint in that background, we'll really look at this, we'll really get his shape better then. Yeah, because this is like right about there. But don't get discouraged, you'll get them, you just keep going till you do. And like I said, when I usually get him to any of my animals to the point where I think I'm pretty close, then I take it in and set it on my fireplace and study it and study it. And my husband's got a good eye too. I always have him come in and look and see if he sees any little thing. Oops, trying to zoom in here. Got a lot of little whiskers. Like I said, it's probably too soon on the chest, but let's try see what happens if we go in here. You know, it's probably still going to be too, till this dries a little bit, because we want this white to stand out. So may have to wait till next time we go adding. Really interesting coloration on him. This is even interesting here. He almost, almost like a pattern. Let me show you. See this shape here? It's interesting, isn't it? I think we're just going to go ahead and get some kind of a wash on the background, just so we get some paint on there. Doesn't mean we'll be leaving it that way at all, but I'd like to get some paint on there before we quit tonight. Kind of define his chest under here. Some of these darks back in. All right, let's get some color on the background. More often than not over the years, I have done, usually the backgrounds are grayed. A lot of times I will take my inspiration too from the photograph. You know, maybe there'll be some, though I don't typically paint what's back there unless they've requested it. You know, there might be some things in the photo that I use for inspiration for the color. If that's not the case, which really in this there isn't, I tend to do a grayed background, so the animal is important and prominent. So I think, and again, this may not be our final choice of color, but we're going to get some color on here for now. And we're just going to mix some blue and some orange and get a grayed color and white. I'm thinking, you know, I think that's a little dark. And we'll be going over this again because, again, it's that's kind of nice. I'm thinking we should still maybe suggest that he's laying on something, because for it to make sense, you know, for his feet to be hanging down, you know, I want that to make sense. So he's on a type of an ottoman there, I think. And of course we're going to want to ground him with a shadow. In this picture, the ottoman is lighter. Palette knife is nice, even if you don't, just to get the color on there. It just moves things along quicker. Okay, so we'll do some more orange and blue. And it doesn't hurt, you know, to leave it kind of mottled in your mixture, you know, and maybe get that on your canvas. I say right now, yep, got a little hunk of something in there. And as you can see, I'm trying to get a little darker in the foreground. It doesn't matter if this doesn't work. We'll be doing it over if it doesn't. Well, let's just brush this in for now. Like I said, I'm going to try to look at the shape of his ears a little better. And it looked to be pretty pointy. And, you know, we'll have to come back like and pull some of these little hairs over the background. Like I said, Monica, tell us anything about him you might like us to know in the comment section. How old was he when he passed away, and how long did you have him? Yeah, some of this stuff's a little bit hard to see with that dark background. Okay, and I went a little lighter through this area because I thought we might actually want him to, this to feel like this was the part he's laying on. we'll be redoing these toenails, so. But you try to work large to small, try to get the large shapes in and finish up with the smallest shapes. That's true no matter what your subject, if you're doing a landscape or, you know, try to block in the big shapes. And yeah, I'm just gonna go around this. We'll be putting the toenails back in. It always feels good to get the canvas covered. Let me mention too that I will be painting the edge of this. I always do that with my stretch canvases. 8 by 10 is a standard size to frame, but when I figure if I paint the edges, that gives whoever it is the choice to frame it or not. If you frame an oil painting, I always give instructions with it, but you do not want to put it under glass. You use what they call an open back frame, and again, no glass. See, I like the neutral background. I think it's nice. One last thing we'll do. It's tricky with a studio photo like this. There's no, I can't see exactly what direction the light source is. It's helpful if you can, if you have the light coming from one side. I'm guessing it was maybe either a lot of light or maybe he was shot from above. And with this dark background, you can't really see a shadow. So again, you know, he's going to have to be grounded though. He's going to, you know, you're going to have to put some dark under him to make him feel like he's not floating. And it's not really time for that necessarily, but I'm going to put a little bit of it in here before we quit. And again, his toenails have to come back. All right, I think it's a good start. I'm going to get you up and show you. We've been at it about just an hour. Okay. And I would consider this mostly a block in. I mean, if we're lucky, you know, a lot of this will be right at the end too. All right, let me stand up and show you. It's unusual to paint one, you know, where I don't have, unfortunately, the poor guy didn't have both eyes, you know. She's got some wonderful photos of him here. Let me show you some of the photos before we leave. She chose this one, and I think it's so sweet. There he is with his brother, sister, I don't know. See, there was that one. This is the one we're doing. This is cute too with the tongue out. So, well, I mean, we'll jump back and forth, you know, they'll help us get what we want. Here, we'll put that back up so we can see it. Right there, that's the one we're working from. Okay, let me get up here. I appreciate you joining me. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. All right, this is where he is. Again, you know, we're going to want him to feel like he's grounded, so we will, you know, we'll get him there. But again, this is more the blocking than anything. See, he's got that, if you can see his eye, just kind of probably a cataract that formed in the eye, I would imagine, right? So, all right, it's a good start. Canvas is covered, and we'll come back and visit him again. I'll at least probably post 2 parts for all of you, and then if there's a few more parts, I may just send those to Monica, you know, and not put you through this. But I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join me, and hope everybody's well in your family, and watch for part 2. All right, thanks again. Bye-bye.